everyone, I am back and we have a lot of catching up to do. So let's pick up where we left off in Genesis chapter 23. So in this chapter, after many years of living in Canaan, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, all of them, they're happy when Sarah dies.
And then they died.
In this chapter is all about Abraham mourning her death and seeking for a place to bury her body. So Sarah dies while she was living in the land of Canaan, in this place called Kiriath Arba, which is now Hebron, and she dies at the ripe age of 127 years. So she lived a long life. And Abraham is living here as a foreigner. So he wants to buy land to give Sarah a proper burial. But the people of this land tell Abraham, no, it's okay, take the land. Or you can use one of our burial sites to bury your wife. And they say, you are an honored prince among us. And they use the Hebrew phrase, Nasi Elohim, meaning prince of God. So he was a respected man with a good reputation. And these people recognized that God was on his side. But still, Abraham said, no, I want to buy land. So he goes to this man named Ephron and asks to buy a cave and a piece of land that he owned. And I guess everyone was really big on giving land away because Ephron tells Abraham, just keep the land, man, just take it.
Take it! It's yours!
But Abraham insists and ends up buying this piece of land. So now Abraham has legal ownership of this land, and this is where he buries Sarah. And the Bible says something very important. It says, so the field and the cave were transferred from the Hittites to Abraham for use as a permanent burial site. So what is the message here? I mean, Sarah dies, Abraham is sad, buys a piece of land, buries her there. What is there to learn? What's so important about this? Well, believe it or not, this was actually another one of Abraham's acts of faith. How, you may ask? Well, back in the day, where you were buried was very important. Choosing where to bury your dead was a sign of residency and ownership. And Abraham could have easily taken Sarah back to Haran, where all the family was, and buried her there with her ancestors. But he didn't. Instead, he said, nope, Canaan it is. This is my residency, and this is my land. This was a way of Abraham completely cutting ties between himself, his family, and the land he came from. He was saying that by faith, Canaan, that place, was where his family would grow, where he would bury his dead, where he would be buried. And indeed, this land that he just bought became his burial site. This is also where his son Isaac was buried, and Isaac's wife was buried, and even Abraham's grandson Jacob was buried here. So who would have thought that Sarah's burial would be such an important event and an act of faith? But it was because of Sarah's death that Abraham had legal ownership of a small piece of the promised land. During his lifetime, Abraham owned at least a small portion of what God had promised to give him and his generations. By faith, Abraham was already taking possession of the promised land. And we should have that faith, like Abraham, who was sure, 100% sure, that God's promise would come true, and he cut ties with everything that went against his promise.